So 2019 was a good year of books, though we did not read a lot of them.
It was a busy year.
It really was.
There are weddings, there were multiple weddings, there were babies, there were trips. But we did read some really good books this year. And we were really excited to talk about this first one, and we have not stopped talking about it since we read it, and that book is Gideon the Knight.
One more time for the people in the back. Lesbian necromancers exploring a haunted mansion in space.
Yes. This is the pitch we have down.
I forgot the word gothic, but who cares?
We've talked non-stop about this book. It was in our decade in review videos. It got its own review video. I'm talked out about this book. All I can say is that it is a must read if you like any of those things, and it is just funny and heartfelt. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, you fall in love with the characters, and you fall in love with the world.
Next book on our list is something we read near the very beginning of the year for Vampire Month. And it just struck a chord with us so hard that I made a note to be like, when we do our wrap-up, we have to make sure to include this book because, one, it started our love of Stephen King, and two, it was just a good book. It was super good, and that book is Salem's Lot.
Yeah, like, I had never read Stephen King up until that point, and I was like, yeah, I've heard a lot of people say he's good. I just expected, like, a Pulp Fiction kind of, I don't know, James Pattinson, Danielle Steele kind of, but he's literary good, which is surprising to me, and I really enjoyed it.
Salem's Lot managed to be kind of a mashup between, like, old school Dracula and, like, comic creepy vampires, and just in his prologue to this book, he's like, yeah, I wasn't sure if my heroes were gonna win at the end, and then I was like, yeah, no, totally, what's he talking about? And as I read this book, I'm like, well, fuck. If you like vampire fiction, you gotta check out this book. It's super good.
It's super worth the read. It's definitely come into the pop culture a lot more in the last few years, I think.
It's getting adapted for TV. I believe in the most recent season of Castle Rock, they go to Salem's Lot, and Salem's Lot is getting its own spin-off show specifically to deal with, they're starting with the prequel short story, which I have not read, and it's supposed to be cosmic horror-y. So, yeah, you know what? Go ahead. And I mean, because we read Salem's Lot, we read Pet Sematary. That is its own can of worms.
Angie Thomas has been knocking books out of the park with her debut, and so I was super excited to read her. I'm going to call it a follow-up because it's not exactly a sequel, but it is in the same kind of neighborhood, city deal.
Companion, almost.
Yeah, exactly. And it was absolutely as good as her first novel, in like the same way where it's solid characters, the themes, like the emotions that you go through as you're watching these characters live their lives is very real and very well done in just like the smoothest way for a contemporary novel. And I don't read a lot of contemporary novels, but when I do, they're usually a little different, and this is definitely a little different than most of the YA books that you would normally read.
I have to read this one still. I won a copy of it, and I was like super pumped, and then I just, you know my pattern? Everyone knows my pattern. I'm gonna read this right now. Ooh. Age of Empires.
Oh my god, maybe we should be doing a summer reading challenge where...
Yeah, me. You're calling me out. I'm the one with the bad habit. You read everything. It's fine.
I do not.
Your list will be like 3 books. Meanwhile, I'm going to be like drowning. I'll have built a house out of the books I'm supposed to be reading.
I literally have a pile this high of books I haven't read.
Have you seen my bookshelves?
Yeah.
I am bad.
Okay, summer reading challenge is what I'm hearing.
I am a bad booktuber.
But yeah, so if you haven't read Angie Thomas, if you haven't like experienced just how good her books are, don't be this one and actually read them.
I should just have like a text scroll going of all of the books I'm supposed to be reading, but I'm filming this video.
Should be a t-shirt.
It really should. Make me that shirt. I'll wear it. Next on our list is Wicked Saints. And this book called to me because it was kind of like a Russian-inspired fantasy. The main character is a cleric. I'm like, oh, that's new. And she directly speaks to the gods, and that was super cool. And so there are two countries, you know, one like clerics and blood mages, and they hate each other for reasons, and they're at war. And it is my brand of bullshit, because it's all like, you know, enemies to lovers and all that fun stuff. It was weird because as I started reading this book, I wasn't really into it. And then I just kept reading it. Like, I'd be the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this down, and then something would happen, and I'm like, oh, I guess I have to continue. Okay, it's getting, oh, well, here we go. And the next thing I noticed, the book was done.
I have not read this, but I want to. I tried to listen to it on audiobook, but the names for me got too much and I couldn't follow what was happening.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to have to read it, like, physically as a book. But it did sound really interesting from the little bit that I got.
And the author is just like, oh, hey, guess what? The second book, do you know what genre it is? And I'm just like,
no, what genre?
What genre is it? And they're like, cosmic horror. And I'm just like, we spent a year complaining that there's no cosmic horror YA. And Emily Duncan's just like, here.
I've heard your call.
Take it. Next on our list is The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. It is her adult fantasy debut. You know, she's written predominantly YA up to this point. The main character's name is Alex, which of course spoke to me because I as well am an Alex.
Fake Alex.
You don't know how true that is. She basically takes the college system and like the house system at Yale and adds a magic spin to it. And guess what? One of the houses, what magic do they do, Chelsea?
Necromancy.
And what am I trash for, Chelsea?
You're a necromancer trashy person.
It's a really good book, and the world that Leigh Bardugo creates is amazing, and that's such a shock. Leigh Bardugo never writes good worlds.
No. Unfortunately, this is one that I still haven't read either. But I really wanted to read it, and I did start to read it, and then I got distracted.
It's also one of the books that came out this year with the snake on the cover.
Yeah, there was a bunch of those. The other one was Holly Black's book.
There is a hardworking snake out there.
Just like, hey. Probably also the same snake from Lanterns.
Yeah,
and
then there was another one that came out too that had a snake on the cover that wasn't the Holly Black one, which had it was the exact same kind of graphic there's a very hardworking snake in the YA industry, and we love them.
I was at work and it was particularly slow and I was falling asleep. I'm like, this needs to change. I can't do this. So I downloaded a bunch of audiobooks, and this happened to be one that I think I found in New York when we were just wandering through a Barnes & Noble we do like to do on our last day. And I just happened to see it and I was like, that's a funny title. I read the back and I was like, sounds great. And so I remembered it. It turned out to be one of the most interesting books I've ever read. I think the woman is actually Indian and Sikh, and she's British as well, and it's written from the perspective of a young Indian Sikh millennial. As she's trying to navigate her community, she decides that she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, but she decides that she wants to try and make a difference by teaching a writing class. She thinks it's like a creative writing class, but it turns out it's just like an adult literacy class. But the widows who sign up for the class are kind of really bored with the subject matter, so they start writing erotic stories. And it blows up the community, just people start reading it and gossiping about it, and it's kind of like a taboo thing, but it is also kind of like a murder mystery in a weird way. It's just got a whole bunch of levels to it that you do not expect to find in this one book, but it works really well at the same time, and the characters are all good, and it's interesting. You're learning stuff while laughing and enjoying this really interesting story. And so I absolutely loved it. I'm starting to recommend it to everybody because it's just so weird but so interesting. So I would definitely recommend picking up this book if you want an interesting cultural contemporary book.
Your books this year all have on your list have a theme, and mine are just
I was interested in the thing.
Next on our list is Never Contented Things by Sarah Porter. We were actually handed just randomly this arc at Book Expo. Someone just here, take this. And we're like, oh, it's Sarah Porter.
Okay.
Oh, we like her.
It didn't even have a cover.
Yeah, the last book was kind of weird and incesty. What could we...
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, this is weird and incesty too. Look at that.
Okay, so Never Contented Things is probably one of the most interesting takes on fairy that I have ever come across in my life. Basically, her fairy world is what I remember the summers of my childhood being, like this very liminal, the rules are kind of gone, structure is kind of gone, like you're 12, you have nowhere you need to be, but and so our characters, they're siblings, they're both foster kids, they're unrelated, but they're in love with each other, but they can't be together because they've grown up as siblings and everyone's trying to keep them apart. The older sister is about to age out of the foster system. The younger brother is about to be adopted by the family they're living with, and they're going to be separated. So the brother decides that he would do anything to keep the two of them together. And so how he does this is he makes a deal with Prince the Fairy King, and they end up in fairy, and it's just a deconstruction about how relationships can really destroy you and become toxic.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The kid, of course, has to like start bringing other people into fairy, and the fairies are weird and creepy, and they're kind of along the lines of the call fairies.
How they take something that you love something and they make it to be the thing that you most hate and makes you the most like unhappy.
It was really interesting.
It was so good.
And like if it was a movie, it would be filmed in very like washed out but bright colors at the same time. Like it's just got its own aesthetic that lives in your brain. And yeah, kind of incesty, but
kind of also reminded me of the Hazelwood.
A little bit, yeah.
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 A Billie Eilish song too. Like
yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a Billie Eilish song come to life. Slay was a book that I picked up and I was really excited for because it had a black protagonist, and it was kind of dealing with MMORPGs, and it was like an interesting combination of stuff that I was kind of interested in. So you've got like the black experience, you've got video games, and just kind of how they meet in this online world that is also kind of like Wild Card in a way, where you've got this really cool virtual reality that people are into. And it was just like a very good read where you've got this main character and she's running this website and she feels kind of responsible for it, but it's trying to give a safe space for Black culture to kind of flourish in its own way. And it was just such an interesting take, and I don't think a lot of people talked about this book, but I think it should be more talked about because it is very much kind of like Wild Card by Mary Lou and all those other kind of stuff, but it's got its own bent to it, which I really loved. The next book on our list is The Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palfredo, who is a friend of mine, and I was so excited to see this book in print because I know she's been working so hard on it. And, you know, if your friend writes a book, you're like, God, I hope I like it, because if I don't like it, ooh, I'm going to have to do some major lying here. And I really liked it. I was like, oh, thank God. Took the whole thing of, like, YA heroine and, like, being a YA heroine and kind of turned it on its head. It had the whole, like, gender-bending girl pretending to be a boy thing. And it had, like, a really great twist, like, about, like, I don't know, like 100, 150 pages in that just hooked you for the rest of the book. And that was absolutely fun. Our next book is coming out very shortly this year.
I have it pre-ordered even though I haven't finished the first one.
And it is totally worth the read, so if you get your hands on it, check it out, because it's Canadian author doing really good work, and it is great. Last book on our list of the best books we have read in 2019 is Wicked King by Holly Black. We were so excited to get the sequel.
Wicked King took the stakes from The Cruel Prince to, like, switch the dial up to 11, and I cried. For all these years I've been saying that I am an ice queen with a heart of ice and stone, and do you know how many times I have said in the past year that I cried because of a book?
Once?
So many.
I feel like when you're getting, the older you get, the more, like, emotional you get.
Yeah, about the weirdest things as well.
Yeah.
Wicked King took one of my favorite tropes, which is enemies to lovers, and turned it up to 11. And because you have Jude, who now has all the power that she has worked towards, and realizes that holding power is almost more difficult than gaining power. And this entire book, she's working towards keeping the fairy court going and how she will still be able to hang on to her power when her deal with Carden wears off. Also, she and Carden kind of want to make out a bit.
We totally enjoyed this book. We totally enjoyed this whole thing. And we are sad to see the series ended.
So yeah, we've read a lot of really good stuff this year, and I'm really happy about it. I'm really excited for everything coming out in 2020.
Yes.
What are you most excited for?
I mean, the book I was most excited for, we read.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Whoops.
I'm definitely excited for the Joseph Fink book about the faceless old woman
Who secretly lives in your home, because it's going to be like a Count of Monte Cristo-esque story, which is like
so weird.
What?
Yeah, I'm super down for it because I've enjoyed every Night Vile book so far.
Yeah, there's this book coming out, and I'm blanking on the name. I will put it up on the screen, but I've been kind of following it since it was announced a few years ago, which is a mashup of Les Mis and The Jungle Book. And, like, the arcs of that are just going out. I've been watching it on social media, and I'm like, well, I have this pre-ordered. Let's
do a thing.
Let's do a thing.
There's definitely stuff that we are excited for, and we will see how our reading schedule goes.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for making 2019 so awesome. And we hope to see you guys again in 2020.
Here's to a good 2020 with many good books and movies and games and the time to play, listen, and watch them all.
Please, God. Bye, guys.